Welcome, welcome, welcome. In today's video, we will dive deep into exploring how Uranus ingress to Gemini may impact our individual and collective connection with the star system Alpha Centauri, our nearest neighbor. It is a fascinating topic, and I'm thrilled to introduce to you Patrick Geary, who is joining me today, as it was through Patrick where we discovered the depth of information and guidance that comes through the Alpha Centauri star system. And Patrick himself has a potent alignment in his natal chart. Some of you actually in our audience, you may remember Patrick from Martha Alter Heinz video, an amazing deep dive on Scorpio and a few other topics. So I just couldn't be more grateful to have a better guest to talk in particular about Alpha Centauri connection. Welcome, Patrick. How are you feeling today?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm feeling really grateful and really glad to be here and excited to dive in and see what shows up.
Absolutely. For me personally, Uranus is sitting on my ascendant. My ascendant is at early, well, zero Gemini. So I'm feeling the third transit through approaching the degree. And for you, where is it sitting in your chart? I think on the opposing end.
Exactly. So I have stellium in Scorpio and I have Mercury at 28 Scorpio. I've also got Mars at 0 Sagittarius and the moon
Oh,
at 25 Scorpio. So this is really activating that pretty powerful alignment in my chart. And the moon's the ruler of my ascendant. So I'm definitely feeling it in a very embodied way.
brilliant. I'm so glad that you have planets in both zodiac signs. We're speaking of in tropical zodiac because I would love to touch on later on in the video, not just on the late Scorpio frequency that Uranus is opposing and activating through opposition, so like external pressure, symbolically, but also the early Sagittarius, because that manifests differently too. And that's what we're heading into with Uranus if we are looking at the axis of Gemini Sagittarius and previously Taurus Scorpio. So, as I said, no better person to have this conversation with. For any of the viewers that didn't get a chance to watch my last year's video where I fully focus on Uranus conjunct Pleiades and that activation and what that means for our collective and on individual level, if you go to my channel and look for Uranus Pleiades conversation I had with Martha Alter Heinz, real beautiful deep dive where we fully focus on the Pleiadian cluster. And previously, I spoke to Heather Ensworth on Sedna in her 11,400 year cycle conjunct Pleiades throughout this year, what that means for our collective, what kind of stories and archetypal experiences are awakening within our personal experience and certainly on a collective level. They're both such gems of video content that can bring so much clarity and insights and healing to you. So I highly recommend it. It feels like it's forming a series of videos on what is happening collectively and how the celestial bodies are guiding us through the process of transformation from this long stage of forgetting into remembering our true history, our true connection to the stars, to the cosmos, and awakening the many beautiful gifts that were staying dormant within our own DNA. So today, let's focus on the Alpha Centauri. Patrick, when we first exchanged a couple of emails, it was you that actually approached me about Alpha Centauri. Do you remember that conversation and what started becoming apparent to you in that experience?
Yeah, it was amazing. I suddenly had this much greater clarity on how I experience my voice and communication in my world, thanks to this deeper understanding of Alpha Centauri. Again, with Mercury sitting right there on top of that star in my chart, I became aware that for me, communication is really an act of adaptability, and there's a real dynamism that I experience. And I had for so long associated that with the Pleiades, which also makes sense since the Pleiades is in and of itself very dynamic and very bright and very communicative. But for me, it's a different feeling. And the feeling is one of me being able to almost change who I am to fit whatever role needs to be fit and sound how I need to sound or have the sense of humor that I need to have in order to connect with someone. So it's interesting. It could be read in one sense as I guess I could see if I were looking at it through the prism of Gemini, that it could be considered as, speaking with two tongues or not having a clear sense of who you are or what your voice is. But for me, it was this real grounded sense of no, this is actually part of my communication style, is being able to easily match an accent, being able to match a sense of humor, being able to match a body posture, being able to match whatever it is that I can match in
Mhm.
order to help someone feel safe, help them feel secure, help them feel understood, help them feel heard, which then facilitates us being able to have a meaningful interaction.
That's fascinating. You don't really have a planet anywhere near early Gemini or even in Gemini at all. So this really is coming purely from your alignments in late Scorpio, the Alpha Centauri connection. So that totally changes my perspective on Gemini being the adaptable archetype, but and the frequency, as you say, it's different with Scorpio. It really feels more like a mirror. Whereas Gemini is I adapt because I want to connect. In a way, Scorpio is that too. For Scorpio, it feels more like I mirror to access deeper truth,
Mm.
our connection together. Right? Is there anything else that's coming there for you?
Yeah, that's a wonderful way to say it. And I think there's also with Scorpio, maybe a comfort of doing that on a deeper level. On Gemini, we can really work with that beautiful horizontal energy that can stay very light and bright. With Scorpio, it is more grounded, it's more centered, it's more embodied, it's heavier, I suppose. You're looking at fixed water. So it's me. And I guess there's also, I'm thinking now too around water, which I love. I love working with water, the consciousness of water, and water also being a mirror, being a reflection, showing us who we are. So there's something around it being in my body and it being something that I am reflecting back, as you say, as opposed to a different sort of spreading. It doesn't feel like a spreading to me. If anything, it feels more like a concentration.
Mm.
And with Scorpio too, for me, there's a real comfort with anyone who has people have a dark sense of humor or whatever they may have. I feel very comfortable matching people wherever they are. It's really kind of a no holds barred experience for me.
Brilliant. I am going to keep bringing the Pleiadian Alpha Centaurian axis throughout this conversation because I feel it's really helping us define the difference between the two. Because oftentimes people, through the opposition and conjunction, we will, in one way or another, experience both these archetypes and not just as zodiacal archetypes, but as we later will discover, we will also speak about the ancestors that come from the stars that connect to Alpha Centauri frequency, our nearest stellar neighbor, and or to the Pleiadian cluster in late Taurus, early Gemini. So I love the defining difference now through communication for Pleiades being air sign, exciting, bubbly, very fast in their wittiness. With Alpha Centauri, and I've seen that over and over, it's much more grounded, stable communication, fixed and water, um, wisdom, living waters, wisdom, memories, anchors um, on Earth. So that's beautiful recognition and realization.
Absolutely. And it's
Mm.
it's emotional connection too. It's not just the mental connection. It's not just the
Yes.
ideas. It's
Mhm.
really the feeling state and being able to match a feeling state. And once I'm mirroring or matching a feeling state, often it gives it permission for it to change. So if I'm working in a way where I'm not attached and I'm feeling free and I'm feeling open, because with Scorpio, certainly we can get attached to things. We can want to hold things in place. So
Mm.
if I'm just focused on being a mirror, for whatever it is that is around me, almost through that, it gives things permission to move on to whatever wants to come next.
Beautiful. So with Uranus approaching the degree through opposition in your natal chart to your Mercury and Mars in July and November 2025, we had two transits through these degrees, and now actually 10 days from now, as we are recording this on 15th of April 2026, Uranus will for the third time pass through the early degrees of Gemini and opposing your natal Mars in early Sagittarius. Have you felt the shift and the nudges for some change and transformation since last year during those two passes? And how are you feeling the pressure building now?
I have. It feels like everything has been up in the air. And for me, I mean, I'm a writer, among other things. I really enjoy writing. I love creative writing. I write weekly. I write about astrology. I also write about my life. I write about how these things come together. And I have been really wondering, how do I want to write? What do I want to write about? What do I want this practice to look like? And every time I have wanted to pin it down, or to be clear about this is what I'm offering, it's like it just sort of explodes or evaporates or something changes along the way to the point where I just reached that moment of delightful surrender and gave myself a creative pause in December and January and just said, I'm just not sure. I just need to be able to write whenever it feels right. I need to be able to use my voice in whatever way feels right to me. I need to be honest, even honest about when I'm not writing or when I am writing. It's really brought me into greater integrity and greater honesty, and also just accepting that I don't need to know, that it can be okay to just have an idea about what brings me joy and to follow that in every moment.
Thank you. That's so relatable. And I'm sure for many of the viewers, as generally the feel I get from my audience, there are many creatives there and many navigating very similar scenario. What I have realized in similar pondering is that rather than trying to figure out an exact plan and structure that my mind wants to put in place, if instead we focus on the frequencies that are important to us to convey in our creative process, that is satisfying that sense of need for some type of structure or some type of clarity and constant in what we do. If it's just focused rather on frequency, like authenticity, sovereignty, truth, um, and any other important values to you, then everything else can be, there can be so many different topics that will come through that gate. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely. That's a brilliant way to say it. I love
Mm,
that. And I can even feel how how wonderful it is to approach things in that way and how it does really bring me into that sense of integrity is
mm,
maybe working with this Alpha Centauri energy because it is so easy for me to match and to mirror that if someone's giving me feedback of, we want this to look like this, or this is a good way to run your business, or this is something that's good to write about, it's very easy for me to mirror that or to meet it where it is, but the deeper and more valuable work is to go inside. And when I go inside, it's much more the integrity that brings me into choice, as you say. And choice to me is creativity, that knowing, all right, this is the frequency, this is what feels right to me, this is what I'm choosing. And even knowing there might be a few, and how nice is it to be able to choose, this is what I want to bring forward this week. So it's long been my practice when I sit down to write. I don't have any idea what I'm going to write about. I might have some clue or some things might genuinely start to like show up in my world. That's how I tend to draw my biggest inspiration is what's happening around me. And once I tune into that, then I'm able to really access that deeper creativity versus, as you say, whatever my mind might think. And I think it's more than just my mind, it's our whole system. It's the
mm.
system that we've built around us. If you think about our economy or business structures or capitalism that want reliability or that want growth or that want things to look linear or predictable in some way. And certainly with Alpha Centauri energy, that's not how it functions. It doesn't feel like it's a linear progression. It feels much more dynamic and much more fluid. So trying to put it into that pathway, it just quashes it. And when I've done that in the past, I just feel really low and really just weighed down and not able to access what I'm looking for.
I love that keyword, fluid, and capturing the essence of things that you focus on, that you write about, that you explore. I just really I hope the viewers will feel the excitement of getting clear about the nuances between on the axis of the two. And I feel the guidance is to find the center and leverage the gifts of all the archetypes, right, that are communicating with us, that are available to us, and especially through activation of different transits.
One point I would just add as I was reflecting on what you just said, which was so brilliant, is there's something around being genuine that I
Mm,
think is a real anchor point, both for that Gemini energy and also for Alpha Centauri. And that is really, as you say, it's integrity, it is inner looking, and it's really being sincere and genuine in what you have to say so that it doesn't get lost into I'm saying this here and this here and this there. And it really, everything feels in the moment if it feels genuine. And if you bring yourself into the frequency of genuine, then it's okay to be saying different things at different times because it's right to say different things at different times. So maybe that also takes us into to looking at the history of the naming, which I thought was so fascinating as I looked at this. I have notes which I'll show, and I have a very good memory and a very short-term memory, and I'm able to take information in and hold it. Really interesting for me. This is slippery. It feels really slippery. The naming history was slippery. So for me, even thinking I want to sit down and take clear notes on what exactly it is that I'm looking for, this isn't a usual experience for me. So I also just want to highlight that and how interesting it is that we are looking at something already, this very activated access, again, of the Pleiades and Alpha Centauri, that we're accessing Alpha Centauri through the Pleiades, through Uranus being in the Pleiades and this opposition point. Even this has a delightful slipperiness about it. So there's something here that it strikes me that it's almost like an invitation into the mystery. I often feel that when I'm writing, that I'm writing about something that words can't express, but I'm maybe communicating that frequency, or I'm communicating a feeling, or I'm communicating a message, and the words are just like window dressing. The words are things that are up around the wall, but really I'm inviting you into a room,
mm.
and the room doesn't really have descriptors here. So there's something around that Alpha Centauri energy that feels very related to that.
Thank you. I must share this before it slips my mind. It's such an important thing to mention in terms of when can we connect with Pleiades and Alpha Centauri in a span of 24 hours. In Northern Hemisphere, May season, daytime, Pleiades is high on the sky, coming through the Sun alignment. Sun is conjunct Pleiades throughout May or mid-May. And during May, if you go into meditation at nighttime, then Alpha Centauri will be on the sky. So that's perhaps how we can work with the Alpha Centauri connecting through the axis in the nighttime meditation, or daytime if we want to access through the Pleiades, sense that, and then from Pleiades look at Alpha Centauri. And then the flip side to this experience happens in autumn, September, October. Alpha Centauri will be on the sky high during daytime, anchored through the sun, and Pleiades will be on the sky at nighttime. So you can do these meditations, perhaps based on your own natal chart. And then, of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the other way around for both. Um, but I love how the day-night changes, shakes hands once a day, and we have the opportunity to work with two archetypes in a span of 24 hours. If we had a noon meditation and then midnight meditation, for the first time I'm realizing it this way, how powerful the opportunity is every single day to work with the archetypes, recognize the axis, and find the centered, grounded state in the middle.
Absolutely. And that also really aligns us with the Alpha Centauri energy, which is that dynamic system and looking to align yourself and center yourself in the middle. And maybe it's worth noting that Alpha Centauri isn't visible in most of the northern hemisphere. South of 29, you have to be south of 29 degrees of latitude,
Mm.
which is pretty far south. That's south of all of Europe. It goes through, I think it's right around Orlando, Florida in the US. So kind of in southern Florida, maybe the very southern tip of Texas. If you're in the US, you'd be able to see it there. Otherwise, you need to be in the southern hemisphere. And I thought it was interesting too, as I was looking back at the history, that because of the wobble of the Earth's axis and well, I guess the same phenomena that delivers us the precession of the equinoxes, that Alpha Centauri used to be more visible. So it was visible in ancient Greece, low on the horizon, and certainly very visible in Egypt, where it's mostly still visible, but again, low on the horizon. So I thought that was really interesting too, that we have another sort of symbolism of it kind of going deeper into the mystery, at least from our northern hemisphere perspective. I know in the southern hemisphere, it gets very much associated as a pointer star to the Southern Cross, which is that primary bright constellation that's very visible. So it does have also like almost a locational feel to it. The same way that here in the Northern Hemisphere, if you're looking for Polaris, people will often use Ursa Major to point to Polaris. So it's interesting too that it plays that role in the sky in the Southern Hemisphere, that it can point to that very bright and prominent constellation.
Powerful. Would you like to dive into the name
Yes,
history first and then
absolutely.
mythology, or the other way around?
I think let's talk about the naming and the mythology will come along with it.
Yeah.
So we know that Alpha Centauri is a three-star system, that there is Alpha Centauri A, there's Alpha Centauri B, and then there's also Proxima Centauri. Alpha Centauri A is slightly bigger than the Sun. Alpha Centauri B is slightly smaller than the Sun. And then Proxima Centauri is much smaller than the Sun. It's a tiny little red dwarf, and it's not even visible. So I think, and that's actually the closest to Earth. So already I think it's really interesting that this is a three-star system. It looks like one point of light, but in fact, it's a three-star system. And that Proxima Centauri, which is the closest star to our sun, is not even visible from the Earth. And there's something to me about this that has a real feeling of guardian angel energy, that there is this beautiful star, that it is the one that's closest to us. It's looking after us, and yet it's not even visible. It's not even something that we can perceive with our naked eyes. So I think that's fascinating. And I'll say too, that's also some of my experience personally is both playing that role in people's lives. People will refer to me as an angel or as a guardian angel. I work with guardian angels. I can feel them. I'm aware of their presence around me. And there's something around that. Again, it's that invitation into the invisible that's right there. It's knowing it's all around you and it's holding you and it's supporting you. And yet you can't actually see it or perceive it with these eyes. Of course, you can see it or perceive it with your consciousness. You don't just see through your eyes. So I think already that's something interesting around being invited into the mystery and invited into the mystery of consciousness.
I wonder, can we slip the story about Alpha Centauri human beings um, deciding to become the guardians of the inner earth planes in the Atlantean era, which very much ties into them being here, yet not being here, only being accessible through the non-physical and psychic perception. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I think it's fascinating knowing that, and I think you were the one who kind of elucidated this to me, that there's the Pleiadians known for being acting above the surface in this very protective and nurturing and caring way of the Earth, and Alpha Centauri, the Alpha Centaurians being below the surface of the Earth, being hidden. And in some ways, when I was connecting with the energy of Alpha Centauri and understanding this story just through my consciousness and my own experience, it really became clear to me that they took this role to hold the earth to in this really beautiful, loving way, and that they didn't need to be seen. And I also felt as I connected with their energy, there was this pain of being misunderstood, the pain of not being seen, of not being appreciated, that there might be a narrative on going into hiding or not being able to be on the surface of the earth. But as I experienced the energy, it wasn't that. It was knowing, again, maybe with this mirror energy, the best place for us to be, we're able to be anywhere in the system, and the best place for us to be is at the center. The best place for us to be is holding the earth as it's going through this process and keeping the light alive.
Thank you. I think it's such a beautiful reminder and a lesson and something we can really draw from during the time of extreme turmoils that we are witnessing on the surface of the earth in many spheres, politically especially. And that's something that Alpha Centaurian ancestors of ours have witnessed or faced at some point when the Atlantean era was collapsing. There was also a lot of turmoil and a lot of power struggle and greed, very similar frequency to what was present on Earth's surface for the last 12,000 years. And rather than seeing Alpha Centaurian collective, as you said, as going into hiding or avoiding what is on the surface, they're in their frequency anchored in their heart, an immense amount of love for this beautiful planet, an immense amount of wisdom also for the cyclical nature of this universe. They decided to remain true to their nature and find space where they can feel safe and at peace where they are and become the anchors and the guardians, holding powerful, stable center while the cycle of chaos is playing out, knowing the time will come when the sky will clear and they can reconnect fully with all consciousness on Earth. So I feel many on Earth at this time feel like that, where they retrieve into their homes as sanctuaries, disconnect from the society that is going through the turmoil and clearing of a lot of subconscious trauma that is coming up to surface to be revealed and healed. It may feel that they're isolated or that they're hiding, but their role is so much more. They are the anchors that are keeping the frequency or the experience of Earth stable and enough for the rest to play out relatively safely for the whole. Does that all make sense?
It absolutely does. And it's really lighting some things up for me in from my own personal experience I can share. It's funny, I have my UN mug next to me. So I used to work for the United Nations for many years. And it's a system that certainly is experiencing, much like every global system here on Earth, a lot of disruption and a lot of chaos. And being in that system for me, it was a wonderful invitation into my integrity. And being in my integrity meant not being able to participate in the political dialogue that I would have needed to participate in order to advance my career within the system. And there's something about that that feels very linked to Alpha Centauri. And I'll say too that for me, being in an environment where people are engaged in deception, and I don't want to say that from a place of judgment, there are systemic buy-ins that can require a certain amount of deception, and we're socialized even into self-deception. For me, that is a state of emotional and energetic confusion, and I can't mirror it. I'm not able to. When I go into those environments, I'm simply not able to experience myself as myself. I remember even having conversations with people and thinking, do I respond to what you're saying or what I know that you mean? And neither response could actually engender a meaningful communication within that interaction. So for me, this is how I feel about the political landscape now. I care deeply about our world and our planet, and the best thing for me to do is not to read the news. It's not to be politically involved or engaged. It's for me to be holding a deep sense of inner peace, harmony, stability, and integrity, and to just live that in my life, however it comes out. And also appreciating that this can be misunderstood by others as not being an advocate, or I'm very much a passionate advocate, but my version of advocacy looks really different.
I would like to invite our viewers who have natal placements in late degrees of Scorpio or early degrees of Sagittarius, if they can relate, can they see this particular theme playing out in their own life as well, where now they can clearly see the very important, without boosting egos, crucial role that they play energetically and as an echo of the Alpha Centaurian collective from 15,000 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And reframing that narrative of I'm not in hiding. I'm making a very courageous choice to see myself and to be seen as I am, and knowing that that's an invitation that we all have, especially with Uranus and with an opposition from Uranus, that's really calling us into, from outside pressures, calling us into greater authenticity, greater clarity.
Mm. In fact, I would love to take this opportunity to extend our deepest gratitude to our Alpha Centaurian family for making that choice, making that decision, and holding strong throughout the ages. And I'm grateful that we can now recognize that their wisdom, love, and presence have been available to those who seek it genuinely through heart frequency all along. And even now, more so than ever, they are perhaps willing to connect and support our decision to be anchors on the surface while the turmoil is playing out. Um,
Oh, thank you. I will join you in that expression of gratitude. And the message I'm getting is if we want to connect and we really want to experience this gratitude ourselves and to offer it, the best thing for us to do is to be genuine.
Beautiful.
All right, should we go back to the naming?
Yeah.
Okay, so I loved looking into this. So I was looking into, and our mythology is all going to relate to Alpha Centauri A and B, since Proxima Centauri wasn't well, I guess it wasn't. I want to say discovered, but that always sounds interesting to me because I'm sure that people were able to see and connect with this energy, even if not with their eyes. But it wasn't visually witnessed until 1915. So the mythology that we have is all related to A and B, and primarily it's related to just Alpha Centauri as one system, as one star system, as one point of light. I was really curious as I was doing this research about whether ancient peoples knew that this was a two or even a three-star system, because the duality that shows up kind of across the board really lends itself to suggesting that perhaps there were deeper levels of awareness and consciousness that weren't quite expressed in the mythology that we have records of. So I also want to hold that possibility open, especially being very aware of the Aboriginal peoples in Australia, where this star would have been very prominent and remains prominent, and such a rich and deep connection with stars that it feels to me like it would be entirely possible, if not likely, that these cultures would have known about there being multiple stars here. So, and maybe the way that we're seeing that expressed is coming out in other ways. So I also just want to acknowledge that before we jump into the naming.
Yeah, that the note I have on the Indigenous Australian lore is that they knew these stars as two brothers
Yes.
in their Aboriginal Dreamtime stories.
So what I've got from that is that it's Alpha and Beta Centauri. So that's how we've attributed it now. Alpha Centauri and Beta Centauri viewed as two sharks pursuing a stingray, or alternatively as two brothers fighting an emu.
Uh,
I thought that was really interesting too. There's another naming of the star Toliman, which we'll get into, which is one of those. Well, that is Alpha Centauri
B.
B, that also has a mythology around ostriches. I thought it was really interesting that there are flightless birds that are being brought into this. Because again, if you think about the Pleiadians versus Alpha Centauri, you think about the Gemini energy, this taking flight, this being up and above, and these are birds that have the wings and that have maybe in some ways the equipment to be able to fly, or we expect them to, but they're not flying. They're grounded. They're centered. They're living their lives on Earth, and they're moving quickly, and they're very adaptable, and they have all of I guess the bird mind,
Mm.
which is very bright and very communicative. And even think about parrots mimicking sounds. So there is that capacity, but it's grounded. It's not flying in the air, it's on the earth. So I thought it was really interesting that we've got that coming in through different means, both through the Arabic and also through the Aboriginal.
Mm. For people who witnessed inner Earth human on the surface around Sedona area, I just recall a couple of stories when I was into this many years ago. They're much taller than us, and they can run extremely fast. They're moving fast. So as you mentioned that in connection to the ostrich, it's true even in their real human current experience if they like they're tall and fast. Their legs are long.
And I am also tall and fast for what it's worth.
Fascinating.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting that what the research that I saw was that it's the so I guess Alpha Centauri A and B, which would be two as opposed to sorry, Alpha Centauri and Beta Centauri, so that it's those two stars that we're seeing as either two sharks pursuing a stingray, which was the Southern Cross, or as two brothers fighting an emu, which was the Coalsack Nebula. So I thought that was really interesting that already even and again, I think it's entirely possible that it could be, as you're saying, that it could be that people knew or experienced Alpha Centauri as these two stars and they were already seeing it. But what I saw was more that it's these two different points of light, so that it's being linked with another star, and it's being seen as two, a pair, even if they're looking at it as two separate points of light. So I thought that's really fascinating. And then Alpha Centauri A, which is Rigil Kentaurus, meaning the foot of the centaur, the brighter of the two stars, which again is just a little bit brighter than the sun. I thought it was really interesting that one of those stars in this system is a little bit brighter than the sun, and another one's a little bit dimmer than the sun. So again, we have like our sun is just in between. So one's a little more, one's a little less. And of course, we have the third one that's invisible. And then there's also Alpha Centauri A is also known as Bungula, which I thought was fascinating because to me that sounds like it would be like it sounds like it would be an indigenous name of some like in some form. It sounds like it has that feel to me, but it's not at all. And in fact, it's likely a misattribution of one of the of a misattribution made by a 19th century astronomer that was meant for Alpha Centauri B. That's the current theory that it's the combination of beta and ungula, which means hoof. So Bungala, which is supposed to be for Alpha Centauri B, Alpha Centauri B as opposed to Beta Centauri. I'm even as I'm talking, I'm finding myself mixing these things up, which is funny because this isn't usual for me. So that Alpha Centauri B was supposed to be called Bungala, but in fact was misattributed to Alpha Centauri A. So yet again, we have another story of like, like this name doesn't sound to me like it would be made up in the 19th century by a Westerner, but it was, and it was given to the wrong star. So I thought that was kind of interesting, that slipperiness again.
Yes, and confusion in a way, and just mm, like what?
Yeah, exactly. And even that, like the sound just disappeared
Mm.
as we were talking. So even that is such a wonderful indication of kind of what we're getting. And confusion, I'll say from my personal life, that is something that I often show on my
Mm.
face, that I was kind of where I would go as opposed to showing distress, I would often choose to express confusion.
And it's becoming clear to me because we had this similar manifestation last time we met. We were meant to record this actually 2 weeks ago, but it just keeps coming up. So what I realize now, perhaps it is the it's a force that helps you really seek the truth and center, because it is agitating in a way. We're like, what? Like you just lost the marbles when, or something is off. Like when it's not balanced, this Alpha Centaurian, perhaps there is this almost like embedded safety pin mechanism that is associated with chaos and confusion, which water scorpionic energy can be like that, right? Before it crystallizes all the way. It's like it's a pathway of the Alpha Centaurians could be of that. You kind of have to go through the confusion before on the way to the center. You have to
Absolutely.
go through this swirl of chaos before you get to the eye of the hurricane
That's it. And
of
yeah,
their manifestation too, like a signature experience. So again, I would like to invite viewers if they can recognize that theme in their life. And so now whenever you have that experience of confusion and things are just mixing up and not coming clearly fully, let's reframe it from frustration to an invitation to take a few deep breaths, find the center and find clarity because it's in like when you go through it, it's right in there somewhere.
I love that. And I love even the metaphor of a hurricane, because when you get into the center, there's nothing.
Mm.
There's no wind. It's calm and it's peaceful. And just this week on Monday, I was having a conversation with somebody around how it's in those moments of chaos and confusion where we have an opportunity to be genuine, or perhaps when we do express our genuine selves. It's that classic, I think they talk about the pratfall effect, where if somebody's going up to collect an Academy Award and they fall, we suddenly see them as human, and we suddenly see them not from the performance, not from this is somebody who's like different from me, who's walking up on stage in this dress. Suddenly it becomes a very deeply human moment. We've all had experiences like that. So really knowing that the chaos and the confusion, it's an opportunity to be genuine. And there's something even around humanity, that something, it feels like it's a very humanizing experience. It's very grounding. So really viewing that confusion as this is a chance for me to actually be genuine, as you say, to stop, take a few deep breaths, and choose how I want to be in this moment.
What's true for me? Yeah, excellent. Please continue
Exactly.
with the notes
Yeah,
you
so if we go back to the names, so looking at Alpha Centauri B, um, and that's interesting. I even wrote Beta Centauri on my piece of paper instead of Alpha Centauri B. So look at that, slippery again. Um, so Beta Centauri, Alpha Centauri B is known also as Toliman. And again, thinking about Bungula and Toliman, Bungula, I would have thought sounds to me like, oh, this is an ancient name. It feels like from some sort of indigenous culture, just the sound, the look of the word. And Toliman, I would have thought, well, that's probably some white guy in like the 1800s who was like, I'll just call it Toliman. No, no, Toliman comes from Arabic. It comes from Az Zelaman. I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but it comes from an Arabic root that means two male ostriches, which was originally applied, in fact, to a pair of stars in Sagittarius.
Oh,
And
wow.
then it was somehow, again, became attributed to Alpha Centauri B. So yet again, both of these stars have names that are misattributions, but
Mm.
have somehow stuck and now been codified. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes. Yeah, and it is it this phenomenon kind of occurs throughout any planetary bodies, any asteroids, any stars, when there is a strong signature that needs to be known as associated with the body. The manifestation of that signature will start occurring throughout our experience in an interaction with the celestial body. So it's beautiful. Like it informs us about something that is important to the star system and how it engages with us and how it affects us and how it manifests in our lives. So there's just something to it. So again, let's invite viewers if they can um, recognize that theme in their own life, if they have strong Alpha Centauri anchored in their chart, and collectively, perhaps through these stories, we can find even deeper clarity about what it actually means to us, or why is it there? Why is that particular? Um, what's even the word apart from confusion, misplacement, changeability? What is it offering us as well, perhaps as we said, circling back to deciding what is true for us, or returning to clarity through that.
Yeah, I would so love to hear from viewers what their experiences are, especially for those who have these connections with the star, or even those who don't necessarily in this lifetime with this birth chart, but who feel a connection. And it feels to me as I tune into it that it can be really playful. It feels almost like a game of hide and seek.
Mischievous, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, there
Mhm.
there is a real mischievous energy, and that is also something that I very much embody. I love mischief. I love playing games. I don't like cruelty when it comes into them, but I love like a well-delivered prank. My daughter was born on April Fool's Day, which just maybe says it all.
Yeah. I just have the visual of the three cups game and shoveling them around.
Oh
You need to pay
yeah.
attention where the point really is. Yeah.
That's it. And I love too that we're looking at it's two stars that we're primarily aware of, but then there's the third one. That's the invisible one that you haven't even considered. So there's like this extra secret sauce. That there's something that's not even apparent that almost feels like that's where the completion comes from. That when you're experiencing that confusion between these two different perspectives, it's actually tapping into this third, this unseen, whether it's the third eye or it's another access point that you have for appreciating consciousness. That's what brings that feeling of completion and wholeness. And that's also where the peace lies.
Yeah, beautiful. Is there anything else there from the names perspective?
Well, I can also bring in, I was looking a little bit at Egyptian mythology and Chinese mythology around this star system. And what I thought was really interesting is that in Egypt, this was viewed as a southern soul star. And the southern part of the sky was thought of as the final destination where souls would go after having led, very interestingly, led a just life. So there's something around justice that also feels very present when I'm considering Alpha Centauri. And maybe justice is also going into integrity, it's going into the quality of authenticity, of being genuine. And in China, Alpha Centauri was seen as part of the Southern Gate constellation. I think they have a different word than constellation, but in China, they would also view stars in groups. And interestingly, the entrance to the southern sky was really about allowing light and allowing auspicious energy to flow to the land. And it was associated with the return of life and spring. So, yet again, we're looking at two different cultures that are considering one, looking at Alpha Centauri as this is a place that we're associating with death, and another that's really associating it with life, with the
Mm.
arrival of life. So I thought that was really fascinating too, that again, these are both cultures that have very developed star lore and they're looking at the same energy and yet they're perceiving it from opposite ends. And it's not like these are tangential, these are related to the same theme, but one's looking one way and another is looking another way.
Fascinating. I would, is there more? Or I
I
would love
think
to talk
that's
about the age of the stars because um, our sun is so old. It's actually much older than some of the fixed stars that we connect with our celestial ancestors. Like Pleiades, for example, is only 100 million years old, estimated. Earth is estimated 4.6 billion. Sorry, Sun is estimated 4.6 billion years old. And Alpha Centauri star system is estimated to be a little bit older, 4.85, even up to 6 billion years old, based on the calculations on the known properties that they have and the physical features of the star system. So they feel like true ancestors, older brothers um, to us. And there has been the Alpha Centauri star system has recognized by our astronomers closest exoplanet to our solar system, with only 4 light years away, or 4.4 light years away. It is our nearest neighbor, and astronomers are pondering the idea of there potentially being possible human life right there. So that actually leads me to a book that was written as a autobiography from a lady who back in the 60s and 70s claims to have experienced a relationship with a man from Alpha Centauri, who was taking her on board of his ship and even took her to the Alpha Centauri, to that exoplanet. And she described their culture, their nature. She said the horses were brought to Earth from Alpha Centauri, that they originate in Alpha Centauri. And she also described very detailed, a lot of great detail, their technology that allows them to travel, make interstellar long distance travel. And she received standing ovation on one of the UFO conferences from the audience. That was also, she received a lot of respect from the astrophysicists and quantum physicists to recognize the quality of the information about the technology, details that she couldn't have known as a lady that lived her own life not involved with technology language. So it's a fascinating book that can actually be found online, and it is called Beyond the Light Barrier. I read it many years ago and really enjoyed it. So there could be more.
Oh, I think there's absolutely more. And I love that connection with horses. I mean, we're looking at again the foot of the centaur or the hoof. And even there's that very wonderful grounded quality. And when I think about horses, the wisdom,
Majestic.
the majesty, and they just feel so close to us.
Mm.
And even thinking about how people relate to horses and the idea of riding a horse, again, it's an energy that's below you. It's a grounding energy that's below you. So if we go back to that understanding of these inner earth civilizations that have Alpha Centaurians that are present or where they are inhabiting the earth, there's something around that too. And that big sibling energy just feels really beautiful to me. I think there's not just the quality of Alpha Centauri as a star itself, but also the role that it's playing in relation to the Earth. And since this is the closest star to us, it really is like a gateway energy. It really is a portal that's drawing us out into the rest of the sky. So it does have that sibling-like relationship with the sun and with us. There's no accidents in the cosmos. So, it makes perfect sense that this would be the star that's next to us. It's the perfect big sibling for us. It's the one who's here to look after us. And so it's really cheesy, but I'm thinking about that song, The Wind Beneath My Wings, which is
Mhm.
really that like it's in the shadows. Like it's not like the role as a big sister or a big brother. It's not like it doesn't feel like it's this I'm here to lead the way and you need to follow me. It feels much more like the servant-based leadership, the new model of leadership that we're moving into, where it's I'm here to help you be the best that you can be. And it's okay for me to be in the shadow. The best place for me is to be in the shadows. Kind of imagine again, if I think about this is different, but if I think about my children, like if they are doing wonderful things, I want to be on the side applauding. I don't want to be on stage in front of them saying like, look at the great job I did raising my kid to get to this place. That's not the right role. The right role for me is to be to the side. It's to be applauding. It's to be supporting. So I really feel that energy from that placement that I'm going to say Alpha Centauri chose to be in this place. If we go back to this bigger cosmic web, chose to be in this place and have this relationship with us. And it's really being illuminated as well, as we're all getting to know our galactic heritage.
Beautiful. The key word that comes strongly through as you're speaking is guardianship. So another strong quality, crystal clear of Alpha Centaurian starseed, and their collective nature is guardianship.
Absolutely. That's such a wonderful word. And it's got a great Scorpio quality to it. There is really that stability, that holding. It feels like it's got almost like emotional or intuitive guardianship too, getting that sense of really the Alpha Centauri energy helping us to expand into our own insight, our own deeper knowing.
Mm. I would love to elaborate on the difference between someone having a natal planet anchored through 29, 28 degrees of Scorpio versus having a planet in very early Sagittarius, 0, 1, 2 degrees of Sagittarius. You have both cases. Can we dive a little bit more into that? And first, I will bring it to the Pleiades. What I've noticed over and over, if Pleiadian um, frequency is anchored through natal planets in early Gemini, the person focuses their Pleiadian gifts in seeing the best in everyone and communicating hope and excitement and like moving the collective towards the best ideal outcomes. And when natal planets are in late Taurus, 29, 28 degrees of Taurus, that Pleiadian signature frequency is seems to be focusing more towards working with Earth, with planetary energies and communicating the highest potential of working with these energies to support us as human collective or working with animals or Earth in general. There's like Earth versus communication realm between these two signs. So I would love to get more clarity on Alpha Centauri manifestation through late Scorpio. We talked about it a lot, but what about early Sagittarius? You have
Yeah,
Mars there, right?
I do. I've got Mars at 0 degrees and 1 minute of Sagittarius, so just crossed over.
Wow.
Yeah. It's an experience. And, when I think about Mercury and I'm tuning into that connection with Alpha Centauri through Scorpio, it does feel very internal. It feels very
Mm.
much like going deeper and deeper and deeper within, even as you talked about that hurricane, going deeper and deeper and deeper in through the chaos to arrive at this state of inner peace. And there, when I'm working with this energy, it feels like there's nothing more to do with it. It's just going deeper within and holding my integrity and being genuine and allowing for myself to be in that place. It doesn't really feel like it wants or needs to come out. It feels like there's maybe that
Complete
energy.
in itself.
Exactly. It's
Mm.
complete in itself. It feels very self-contained and it doesn't feel like it needs to be seen. And maybe there's even some reticence or reluctance that being seen, and I can see this in my own life, that being seen then means that it might be diluted in some way. And if it's not held firmly, it's like, I guess, if you have a creative project and you're bringing it into the world and you have 10 different people give you feedback and their feedback is all over the map. And suddenly you feel like, I don't even know what this is about or where my voice is in all of this. If you get that feedback too soon, then you're not grounded or anchored in what's genuine for you. So when I look at it from that standpoint, it feels like it is this real internal experience of, okay, I need to move into that frequency of genuineness and really guard that and hold that dearly. And then once it's anchored, there's no concern. Then it's okay. Then it's able to just exist. And of course, like everything that we're experiencing internally is always being broadcast on the outside. It's just how we are viewing it. And with Sagittarius,
Oh,
it feels
before you go there, I
okay.
think there's a little bit more there. I think one more puzzle just revealed itself that in connection to no desire for being seen or communicating anything, because there is a sense of knowing your wholeness. And if you communicate to something or express, it's only a fragment of the wholeness. And it feels like you are diluting the wholeness in that experience. So that's why it's like, no, I'm whole here. And do you know what I mean? If you show an aspect of you through exchange with someone else, in a way, they only see that fragment of to the extent of how they see themselves. And you feel that strongly that actually, and that's not fully you. They don't see you in your fullness. So it's almost like not even wanting to go there. Would that make sense?
It does. And I
Would
think
that be
that
the
really
reason?
goes to that point, speaks to the point around being understood or feeling
Mm.
the need to be
Mm.
understood. And that's been a lot of my internal work over the past few years, especially, is releasing the need to be understood. Because if I'm approaching interactions from that perspective of I need you to see the whole of me, or if only you knew, that's often what I experience is if only you knew how much I cared,
Mm.
then, this interaction wouldn't have happened.
Mhm.
Then you wouldn't be angry or you wouldn't be upset. Or if you could really see things how I see them, then there wouldn't be any conflict here. So it has been painful at times for me to bring out how I see things because, as you say, even though I'm expressing from a place of wholeness, other people aren't experiencing me from a place of wholeness.
Mm.
So
I imagine this is quite common frustration of Alpha Centaurians. This the frustration that people see only a fraction and they don't feel the immense depth of their wholeness. And how do you communicate that? Only through being, only through
that's
being.
it. Well, and actually, you inspired me. I remember the first time we met, you talked about the idea of doing a session with people or having a group session where people would just come and you would just open it and just say, hello, we're just going to be here together and just sit in silence, it just spoke to me so much that I started doing it. And the silent sessions that I did with people were truly all I would do is show up online and they would show up online and then we would sit in silence together. Those were the most powerful sessions I've ever done. And towards the last of it, the last of these sessions that I ever held, interestingly enough, perfect for Alpha Centauri energy, I got confused. I didn't show up to the silent session But when I realized it, 10 or 15 minutes later, I think I realized, and I was frantically sending these messages to my client saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." That's really unusual for me to not show up for something, especially for a client. I think that's maybe the only time I've done that. So it's not a common experience for me. And when she wrote back, and so as soon as I calmed down, I realized I think she's doing it anyway. I think she's just doing this. I'm also just going to sit in silence. And she wrote me this wonderful message, at the end of the hour and said, like, thank you so much. I have a long standing meditation practice. I haven't done a silent meditation like this ever before. I've been wanting to do it. And I felt your presence with me the whole time, and it was perfect. So I thought even that was like that next level of like, my presence is speaking even and again, maybe it's that Proxima Centauri again that like there's like the invisible element in her experience was me,
Yeah.
holding that space for her silence and being in a space where there's no need for words is incredibly comfortable for me.
Amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. What a testimony.
Yeah, well, thank you for the inspiration.
It must have been for you because I didn't ponder it anymore. It was just coming through there and then. It must have been for you. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so I would like to invite others as well. If there, you may feel called to just sit in silence with another or a group in a group setting. Don't underestimate how powerful that can be. So just, let's have more of that. Let's have more of
absolutely. And you
that.
know what? I'll reopen it. I'll put a link that you can put down below for if
Mm.
people want to come and join for it's donation based. If anyone wants to come and join for a donation based silence session where we just sit together in silence for an hour, and during that time you do whatever you want, I will gladly reopen that. It's such a wonderful practice.
Mm.
And it's also really creative. I know that I'm curious if she has connections. The artist Marina Abramovich, who did this wonderful project where she just sat at the Met Museum in New York. She just sat in silence, and people would come and they would sit across from her and just look into her eyes. And she did this for days and days and days. And it was deeply transformative, both for her and also for her, for the people who sat across from her, and I think also for the art world. She
Mm.
talked about in the progression of her creative career, doing more and more of less and less. And I feel like that's also how I
Mm.
feel when I am in my deepest creativity is there's really not much to do.
Mm.
It's just being.
Yeah, beautiful. Let's switch to early Sagittarian manifestations.
Yeah, very, very, very different feel to me. With Sagittarius, it really, again, I guess both Sagittarius and Scorpio have this wonderful truth-seeking energy. The Scorpio energy feels very internally oriented to me. With Sagittarius, it feels like it's like looking almost at universal law. And again, it's interesting that I've got the UN mug thinking about international law and
Mm.
human rights and these beautiful, beautiful principles that are articulated for, how we understand ourselves as humans, the rights that we have, what it means to be a person. And this is supranational law. It's not enforceable in the same way that like a parking ticket is enforceable, which is kind of crazy that like, your right to food isn't enforceable. But, if you park like in the wrong place, wrong place in the street, then you're going to get a ticket. So very interesting to notice how we've organized our systems. And what I feel really passionately about now, and this is public work, so this is different with Sagittarius, it doesn't feel like an imperative to express it outwardly. It just feels natural to express it outwardly to me. It feels natural to bring it out into the world. And this reminder to look up and this reminder to know what the nature of the universe is, to study consciousness and to get to that place where, again, maybe this is some of that Alpha Centauri energy coming in, where it is so remarkably simple that there's almost nothing to say. And this is often how I experience universal truths, is that it's just so wonderfully simple. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like straightforward for me to implement this in my life. Like as I'm learning now, I'm learning a lot about just relaxing, just letting go into trust, letting go into faith, not responding to any of the stimuli that are seeking for me to engage with them or to draw me into a story or into a narrative, going with the higher truth that all is well, that everything is okay. Those are the truths that resonate the most with me, are the ones that are the simplest. They really it is truly like they are so beautifully self-contained again, but like everything is within that container.
Beautiful. Thank you. So the key word I'm getting is simplicity in connection to universal laws. So I would like to ask the viewers if they have early 0 to 1 to 2 degrees of Sagittarius, natal planets or anchors in their chart, are they observing a theme where their consciousness is focused to admiring and marveling at the universal laws, but the drive is to communicate them or experiencing them in their simplest, purest form, rather than people through other placement may feel like creating complex teachings. But no, the early Sagittarius, Alpha Centaurians, they may actually bring things back to the simplest form as it was designed.
Oh, that is so well said. Yeah, I do not appreciate complexity. I mean, I am a Scorpio through and through, so I can certainly love like a problem or like a complex problem or things that have many different threads, and I love finding the way through, but I do not like making things more complex, which is interesting as having trained as a lawyer and worked as a lawyer, that is so much of what lawyers can wonderfully do is make things more and more complex, use more and more jargon
Yeah.
and really make things inaccessible. And even in law school, I studied and wrote an article on this idea of therapeutic jurisprudence, which is the law as a healing instrument. And there it's all about everyone has access, everyone is participating in the process. This is how justice is healing. Everyone needs to be able to participate fully in the process. As soon as you are creating gateways and you're disempowering people and you are making things more complex or more jargony so that they can't actually understand what's going on, you're inviting in abuse of power, you're inviting in disenfranchisement. So for me, too, looking at that system, if I were to think about divine justice is it's always being done. It's just knowing that what you do is being reflected back to you. So how do we all move into that higher realm of justice as opposed to, for me, the complexities of drawing it down?
Wonderful. So my attention is being taken now. What can we expect collectively with Uranus shining light through opposition onto these archetypes, awakening, stirring things up in Alpha Centaurian starseeds that are here in millions, I'm sure, or just souls that have some type of either through even physical human DNA or just one placement in their chart. So it's not like their wholeness is Alpha Centauri, but they have strong connection to Alpha Centaurian frequency. I believe Uranus will start awakening more conscious awareness of these qualities and bringing them more online for people, right? That's the purpose of Uranus. If we look at these through the lens of Uranus, would you like to elaborate a little on that, on how you um, translate that connection?
Yeah. Um, and to me, that what I'm hearing is where can you shatter the story that it's not safe to be who you are? 'Cause I
Where
think,
can you shadow the story that is not safe?
yeah, that where can you shatter the story?
Oh, shatter, shatter.
Shatter. Look at that wonderful Alpha Centauri energy coming in already, right? Where can you shatter the story that it's not safe to be who you are?
Love that. That's powerful.
Is that Uranus energy is so wonderful for breaking things apart.
Lightning
And it
strike.
feels to me, it's almost like I'm kind of imagining a star that has like almost like like I'm seeing like sort of like a bright light, but there's like a black crust that's going around it. And Uranus almost sending like a lightning bolt style activation into it to just shatter that story. It is that story, that heaviness, that density, maybe even the complex ways that we convince ourselves that we're not allowed to do what we know is right for us, that we're not allowed to behave in a way that is most reflective of our truth. Um, and sometimes we do have experiences with Uranus. I can certainly think of some I've had over the past where even sharing a beautiful truth, sharing a truly a beautiful truth that I've seen or experienced about somebody, that when I have reached out to share it, it has not been well received. And that
Mm.
again, that pain of feeling misunderstood and oh my gosh, do I need to hold back? The answer is not to hold back. And I think it is. it is wise to remember that we all are where we are. And, I trust that if something happens, it's what needs to happen. But knowing too, using that wonderful power of being present without needing to say something, that maybe even playing with it feels like this is a fun way to engage with this Uranus energy. And it kind of makes sense with Uranus also going into Gemini, playing with telepathy and playing with these higher conversations and talking to a higher self and just sending a message rather than if I were to say to a friend something like, I remember I had a conversation with someone. I was talking about safety and just saying like, "Oh my gosh, you are so valuable. You are so, so valuable and so special." The idea that the universe wouldn't love you and treasure you and want you to be safe, like this doesn't make any sense. You are so beautiful and so special. But if you're not experiencing safety, hearing those messages is not necessarily helpful. So for me, it's also learning about, all right, I can know that it's true and I can also deliver it on a level. And I want to deliver that message. I want to deliver it on a level where it can be received and be comfortable with that. And then know that, it can also come back to me. Like if I'm sending that message to someone's higher self. So if I would encourage everyone to play around with this over this next period of time, is when you are accessing truth and you're accessing beautiful truth, particularly if it's about somebody else or there's insight that's coming through that you want to share with the world, sharing it on that higher level and then let it come back to you.
Wonderful. What's coming through and during that process as well, there is an element of patience with Alpha Centaurians, understanding the time it may take for someone to go through their own process until they arrive to the truth and being okay with that. It's a quality that they hold. Would you recognize that with you?
I would,
Mm.
absolutely. I think I've been
Mm.
very actively cultivating patience.
Yeah.
And, certainly I've experienced frustration in so
Yeah.
doing, which is normal because that's my own process.
Yeah, but I love the immensely helpful tool that you suggested in um, during that process of waiting and hoping for them to grow and arrive to the point of truth and recognition. You can have a telepathic communication and heart to heart. Those are so powerful. They really are.
They so are. And especially if you're looking at a planet that's an early Sagittarius, or in my case, Mars. Mars is such an action planet. It really encourages me to do things. So the idea of doing nothing, well, doing
Mm.
nothing isn't really doing nothing. Everything is a choice. Sleeping is experienced as an action in our bodies. Everything has a physical action component. There is something that feels really nice to me and feels like important, I guess I could say, about actually feeling myself or experiencing myself taking a meaningful action. So just remembering, as you say, that action can happen on any level. So especially if you're working with that Sagittarius, that external motivation, that's a really nice thing to do.
Thank you so much. You just helped me reframe my agitation with sleep time. Every evening, I'm like, oh, I have to go to sleep. I can't wait for another day. It's such a waste of time. I'm double Aries. So this is really often. So I'm going to it's shifted now. I'm going to recognize the amount of action that's happening while I'm sleeping. Thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I'll say too, I got back from California a few days ago, so I've had a lot of jet lag. So I've been up in the middle of the night for hours and hours at different times, which isn't necessarily usual for me. So I've been spending a lot of time in that space, in and out of sleep, and very consciously engaging with it. And the more that I consciously engage with it, and the more that I become aware of all that's happening in that space, the more like that space starts to feel more like home. Like that space starts to feel more like this is where the real action is happening. I even heard someone talk about how it was like a French theorist who had a theory that, like, again, like that's where the real action is, and this is the dream, like, which I guess is not uncommon, but like
Mm,
that just the inversion of like maybe that's really the waking life and this is the sleeping life,
mm,
which is also perfectly Alpha Centauri to kind of turn things on their head or look at that difference between day and night. So what's it like to start looking at your night as your daytime?
And I do have a very rich dream state. I remember my dreams every day. I know what I was, where I was. I have Venus in 12th house, so I have a lot going on there. But there is an element of my human part self, the conscious ego, I suppose, who loves being alive. that.
I get that too.
Yeah, but I want to go back to Uranus because, as you expressed, the lightning strike and shattering elements that are an illusion, there is also the electric shock activation of something that was dormant that may manifest around this time when Uranus will be going through early Gemini. Well, and already for a while now, since last year. I wonder in the audience, have you had that type of activation that felt almost electric, like something was revived, something that was dormant inside you for so long, now it's coming online. So that may be another element. And one more manifestation is the diamond frequency that I associate or connect with Uranus, that there that may manifest as a newly found strength, stronger willpower, stronger clarity, stronger sovereignty through this Alpha Centaurian axis. Is that something that you may start recognizing going forward and see if you can claim it and hold it and use it, because there's still going to be more um, unraveling globally. And I also believe more miracles through the quantum leaps that we are making individually and collectively. So I'm very hopeful, as
Oh, yeah.
Pleiadians are.
Absolutely. I will certainly join you in that hope. I
Mm.
really feel it in a very deep and embodied level. And maybe remembering that what we can experience as chaos on one level is also a loosening. It's making more miracles possible. It's allowing things like we're now experiencing telepathy much more regularly. So many more people are experiencing contact with extraterrestrials, and they're talking about it openly. We even know that the decline in the Earth's magnetic field and more cosmic radiation, more light that's reaching the surface. So yes, it looks like chaos on one level. It is also an opening on another level. So I really feel that.
Beautiful. So, in closing, as we anticipate next 7 years of Uranus moving through Gemini and truly quantum leaps worldwide, so many changes. While Uranus was in Taurus, it felt very contained, almost like in a straitjacket, not, going about changes, not in his natural, usual free liberator manner, but in Gemini, it's going to go like a wildfire. So even more so, the message of anchoring with the Alpha Centaurian axis. I would love to invite you to talk just a little more on the grounding practice tools. How do you go about you returning to your center and grounding when you feel like it's really needed? Because there'll be so much going on from every direction through Uranus moving through Gemini. So let's close with the grounding element.
That's a wonderful, wonderful inquiry. And I've gotten some insight on it over the past couple of days. In fact, yesterday, very interestingly. And it's about both it's about grounding and also centering. And more, I find myself using the language of centering. And grounding is wonderful to activate the lower chakras, to help us feel safe, to help us feel connected to the earth. I think also as the Schumann resonance is shifting here on the Earth, there are more lightning strikes that are going on. I have experienced anxiety running through my body. I know a great many people have as well. And it's not anxiety that has a particularly identifiable cause, as I might be able to see that can show up in my life, but it just feels like a more electric, embodied experience, which could also certainly be tied into Uranus. So I'm finding my grounding practice is changing and it's different as the frequency of the earth is changing. And I'm being invited to move more into my center. So once I feel grounded, so I'd certainly say if you have a grounding practice, getting your feet on the earth, squatting, really imagining roots. I had a session with a client the other day where I thought this was fantastic, maybe perfectly Alpha Centauri, of picturing and feeling the lower half of your body below the ground. Rather than feeling the earth below your feet, feeling half of you below the ground. And this really moves that narrative from the grounding is below me to the grounding is inside of me. And when the
Mm.
grounding is inside of me, then I'm able to access that center. So I would really encourage people to really get to know where your center is And it's individual. It's not the same for every person. Your center of gravity, your physical center of gravity. I went to a yoga class when I was away in California, and this was all was it what it was about. It was about finding your center of gravity, and you can do it if you extend your limbs in opposite directions. So if you take your right arm up and you take your left leg out, then you can feel where that meets if you're doing the opposite. So if you kind of right leg, left leg, or sorry, right arm, left leg, and then if you take your left arm and your right leg, and you imagine there's a line of energy running from the tips of your fingers, the right fingers to the tips of your left toes, and then you do the same thing with your left fingers and your right toes. When you've got those limbs extended, you'll feel where those lines of energy cross in your body. It's probably going to be around your navel. It might be below, it might be above. For me, it's a little above. Knowing where your center of gravity is, really feeling that center of gravity, and then letting that lower half of your body be below the earth and the top half be above the earth. That to me has been my practice, really my awareness practice.
Beautiful. I love that. The one that came through that I never considered before is becoming conscious of the living waters inside your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how we never really take our attention there. Well, speaking for myself here, knowing about the amazingness of the fluid that moves through us, but I think I'm going to start bringing my conscious attention and love and gratitude to the living waters inside my being and see what that does.
Oh, it's amazing. And if you think about Scorpio and you think about fixed water or contained
That's
water,
how
that's
it
what we
is.
are. You know,
Yeah, that's what inspired me.
we are these vessels. And I'll say too, I just this week, as always, everything is perfectly aligned, started using, I have a water vortexer. So it's just a little attachment where you can put two glass bottles together and you can vortex the water. I already had a filter and a hydrogen bottle. So I really, again, I'm so aware of the water, more and more aware of water and how the quality of the water and how I'm consuming it. And the vortexing, it brings movement into the water. It brings circulation into the water. It's like
Activation.
the exactly the activation. And the water that we would be consuming if we were living out in nature would probably be from streams, or it would be water that was in movement. If water isn't circulating, if it doesn't circulate in ponds or lakes or even rivers that need to turn over for them to stay healthy, for them to support life. So the water that we want to be consuming is best when it is coming from a place of movement. As you say, it's circulating. Our water is circulating. So if we're taking stagnant water and putting it into our bodies, we then have to make it circulate.
Mm.
Versus if we take water that's already in circulation, it much more easily flows into us.
And in fact, it may vary for people who are in constant state of movement or even anxiety or stress. They may, in fact, as a medicine, use the still water. But those that are still and in meditating state and just kind of in hibernation, they really may need the medicine of what you just shared there. It may vary.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, it's going to be what's best for you. And it's
Mm.
interesting too. I've been doing this every morning with my kids, and it makes tornadoes, which is also kind of perfectly Uranian that we're kind of looking
Mm.
at these water tornadoes every morning. They love it. So it's also just looking at that image and
Magic.
beholding that image really to me brings me into greater conscious circulation.
Beautiful. This has been so enriching, Patrick. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this deep dive exploration of the Alpha Centaurian connection point and feeling excited about the activation that will continue to occur for many individuals with this alignment. And I look forward to recording another video where we focus on the Regulus alignment because Uranus is in square aspect to star Regulus and to star Fomalhaut. So um, through early Pisces energy and through early Virgo and the signs before them. So, and in fact, in June 2026, our collective lunar south node will be conjunct star Regulus, while Uranus will still within the orb of that 90-degree tight square angle. So I'm sure there'll be more um, connections and activations and reawakening of past alignment with Regulus and then with Fomalhaut. So I look forward to exploring that. So I hope the audience will stay tuned. And where can people find you and connect with you, Patrick? What's the name of your website, please?
So the name of my website is truthtakestime.com. And I do post on YouTube, and I write regularly on Substack. There's a link to my Substack on
Cool.
my website. I think it's just truthtakestime.substack.com if people want to come and join me and subscribe. And again, I mentioned that I've really been playing with different offerings. And what's really nice is I'm now arriving at a place of greater certainty. So on Substack, I write weekly. It's free and open to all. And I also do monthly retreats. I'm doing one that's coming up on Sunday, April 26th at 8 p.m. UK time. I do that every time the sun changes sign. So this will be a Taurus retreat. And in that, I talk a little bit about what's coming through that constellation. I offer an activation, and then we have a little community Q&A. And I'm also now, as part of my Substack for subscribers, doing monthly classes on, and again, my midheaven is at 0 degrees of Aries. So I've just had a lot of activation. So I've
Wow.
learned that for me, it is just the information is going to come through. So I don't know what the class is going to be about until I know what it's going to be about. And then I send it out and announce it. And that way it always stays fresh. I know for me, just like the beauty of our conversation today, the best way to learn astrology or connect with the stars is to do it live. So I'm really committed to that, and it's what feels good. And I am just so grateful to you. What a wonderful conversation. You've really helped me get so much more insight into this star system, into myself, into what we can await for the collective, and really helped me just move into deeper gratitude. And yeah, I would love to hear from your audience what their experiences are of our conversation and what their personal experiences are, how they've gotten to know this constellation. It's really, we all have our own truth, and it's through sharing our own truth that we really get to see that bigger picture.
Absolutely, 100%. For those who are curious where the stars are in their natal chart, they can go to galacticastrochart.com, put in their birth details, and they'll see whether Alpha Centauri or Pleiades, Regulus, Fomalhaut, or any of the stars are present. So it'll make the navigation easier. And I can only echo what you've just said. My understanding of how the stars directly communicate and manifest in our lives is through paying attention to the stories from within the community. So I'll be forever grateful to every single person that connects through YouTube or other media with me. And as I said it so many times, I'll never get tired of hearing the stories of direct manifestations and just the magic that continues to unfold. So it feels wonderful to be so held and so supported by the entire creation and on our journey of returning back home to our wholeness. So thank you to every single master alchemist. I think we all can safely say at this point we may classify as master alchemist based on the immense amount of everything that is happening around us and how we are navigating it and um, finding our way through it. So it's an absolute honor to share this journey with you all. Thank you again, Patrick.
Thank you.
Much love to everyone. Until I'll see you next time. Take care.